So today I thought I'd do something a bit different. I'm going to do a re-upload of my Council of Nicaea, but I'm going to put them all together. So we'll have parts 1, 2, and 3. You can find the parts separately under the playlist of Councils of the Church. This is the early days of my channel when I was using music. I can't erase the music. Sorry about that. Also, since I do have different music, I'm going to separate the parts using my video editing software that I have today. I did not have that earlier. And so anyway, please have fun, and here we go. Hello friends, if you're new to my channel, welcome. If you're a subscriber or a fan, welcome back. Today I am doing a request. It is the Council of Nicaea. I forget who made this request, but I am taking requests. Please keep in mind that I would like it to be something having to do with religion. You can leave it in the comments or on my Twitter page. Unlike the other episodes on my channel thus far, I am using both Christian sources and secular sources because I don't feel that the Christians have anything to gain by lying about the Council of Nicaea, and also they would be the best sources to get information from. I realize that most of my viewers are Christians, former Christians, or are familiar with Christian terminology. For those who are not familiar with Christian terminology, I need to define some terms. First, Logos is the same as the Son, S-O-N, who is the same as Jesus, and the Father is God, who is the Creator. The apologists of the early Christian church, in order to make themselves more understandable to the heathens, made themselves less clear on the Logos, or Jesus, than other chief points in Christianity. In this attempt, they did not give the Logos his supposed due, that is, they did not recognize his equality with the Father. They placed too much emphasis on his personal distinction from the Father. However, they also tried to establish the divinity of Jesus and his equality with the Father by saying that he was not a creature and that he came from the same substance as the Father. In other words, early apologists vacillated in their position. From this mess came the heresy of Sabellianism. While maintaining the godhood of the Son, it destroyed the distinction between Father and Son. Inevitably, this position led to subordinationism, which tried to keep the distinction between Father and Son, but in so doing, subordinated the Son to the Father. Arius then took on the mantle of subordinationism between 318 and 320, but with a twist. Arius held that the Logos was created before the Father created time. This all took place in Alexandria, Egypt, under Bishop Alexander. In the beginning, he tried to keep the dispute quiet, but in 320 or 321, he convoked a large ecclesiastical convention consisting of Egyptian and Libyan bishops. This synod excommunicated all African Arians. Not much later, because of all the ruckus the Arians were causing, Alexander had to inform all the bishops of this state of affairs. The Arian heresy is as follows. 1. God was not always the Father. 2. The Logos, Jesus, has not always existed. 3. The Son is a creature. 4. He is not the same substance as the Father. 5. By Jesus' nature, he is subject to change. 6. He does not know God perfectly. 7. He was created to create us. The Orthodox view, as championed by Alexander, stated that Jesus was at all points like the Father, except in one area, that he was begotten. This, he argued, did not mean that Jesus wasn't eternal. He is the image of God, and thus deserves to be worshipped as God. Meanwhile, there was a synod in Bithynia that supported the Arians, addressing all bishops, asking them to give communion to all Arians. A synod is a council of a church that is usually called to decide issues of doctrine, administration, or application. In the early Christian church, it was composed of bishops. Unfortunately, this did not settle the unrest. In fact, it made the struggle more intense. In the political arena, Emperor Licinius, who ruled Egypt and Asia, entered into a war with Constantine in 323, which Constantine won. This only served to increase confusion and division in the church. Constantine, who had gained control of the entire empire with the defeat of Licinius, thought it was his duty to return peace to the realm, both civil and religious. With this in mind, he wrote letters to both Arius and Alexander, asking them to reconcile their differences. It was under these circumstances that the Council of Nicaea was convened. In the next video, we will be going into what exactly happened at the Council of Nicaea. So stay tuned. The principal sources we have for what happened at the council is the Nicene Creed, the 20 Canons, and the Synodal Creed. These are the only three that remain, but according to the Arabic edition of the Canons, the Acts of the Council filled at least 40 volumes. But the authenticity of this document is in question. Everyone agrees that it was held in 325 AD. Constantine himself opened the council as honorary president, then handed the proceedings over to Hosius, the papal legate. Immediately following this, the Orthodoxy accused the Arians of heresy, whereas the Arians in turn accused the Orthodoxy of heresy. Around 480, all 318 signatures of the bishops present at Nicaea still existed, but now we only have partial and perfect lists due to copyist errors. Despite these faults, the lists are regarded as generally authentic. Two reasons for this are that, as with other ancient synods, the members of the council are grouped by provinces, and the fact that the provinces' political boundaries line up with those present at the time of the council. When the synodal formula was presented to Constantine, he approved it and threatened to banish those that did not sign it, so we can't even say that everyone who signed it approved of it. He also ordered that the books of Arian be burned. This is, of course, just my thought. This was not the work of a Christian emperor, but that of an emperor who needed unity in religion and politics at all costs. In addition to settling the Arian controversy, the council was also tasked with settling the Easter controversy. It is reported that all parties present at the council agreed that this festival was instituted by the apostles. The Easter controversy, then, lay in how it was celebrated. One group insisted on the Passover, while the other two held that the Passover had been done away. The two parties who agreed on the abolition of the Passover disagreed on 2 points: the time of the Easter celebration and regarding the fast. Both sides celebrated the day of death as well as the day of resurrection. They both agreed that the Easter celebration should commence on the 14th of Nisan, but some insisted on preserving the day of the week. That is, his death should be celebrated on Friday and the resurrection on Sunday. The second point in the Easter controversy was the fast. The western part of the empire considered Friday as a day of mourning, but the Asiatics considered this a day of redemption, and for this reason, they considered it a day of joy. The Orientals fasted in the hours leading to his death and broke the fast at 3 p.m., the hour of his death. However, the Occidentals considered the whole day to be dedicated to mourning and did not break the fast until the day of resurrection. Only the Christians in Asia Minor did not celebrate his death on Friday and resurrection on Sunday. The council's decision was threefold. Easter should always be celebrated on a Sunday. It should never be celebrated at the same time as the Feast of the Jews, and Christians were forbidden from celebrating Easter twice in 1 year. That is, the equinox should not be considered in the calculation of Easter. The council also decided that Easter should always be celebrated on Sunday, and that it should never be celebrated at the same time as the Feast of the Jews. Pope Leo makes it clear in one of his letters that it was the duty of the Alexandrian branch to compute when Easter should be celebrated each year, and send a letter to Rome, whereupon the Pope would declare that day as Easter, and the East and the West would celebrate Easter in accordance with what the Pope ruled. In practice, this was much more difficult. The differences in calculating Easter did not disappear. East and West could not agree, either because one of the churches failed to calculate Easter or because the West refused the date from the East. Therefore, even after the council, the East, or Alexandria, and West, Roman churches, celebrated Easter on different. The Synod of Sardica was convened in 343 AD to take up the question of Easter again, but again the decree was not observed. Thus, Emperor Theodosius had to take decisive action to answer the question of Easter. It was not until after 456, when Dionysius the Less proposed his table to the Romans, that the Easter question was settled. Only 2 outliers did not accept this: Gaul, which is present-day France, that still used Victor's canon, and Great Britain, which still used the West's old calendar. After the Heptarchy was evangelized by Romans, the new converts accepted the Dionysian calculations, but British dissensions had already spread to Gaul. By 729, however, most British churches accepted the Alexandrian cycle. Heptarchy is a word used to designate the period between the end of the 5th century CE and the second half of the 9th century in Great Britain. 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were established and held onto until the Danes destroyed them. The decisions of the Council of Nicaea faced even greater opposition in the East. Finally, in 341, the Synod of Antioch felt compelled to threaten anyone that did not comply with the Easter decision with excommunication. This tactic was not entirely successful. Epiphanius writes that there were still many quartodecimans in the year 400. But they could not even agree amongst themselves. The third reason the Council of Nicaea was convened was to end the Meletian schism happening in Egypt, not to be confused with the Meletian schism of Antioch 50 years later. Remaining documents do not allow us to determine the true origin of the schism. Meletius was accused of troubling ecclesiastical rules. He held ordinations in strange dioceses, even though he knew it was against the rules. Some bishops wrote to reprimand him, to which he made no reply. After the martyrdom of the bishops, he went to Alexandria, where he befriended Arius and Isidore, who wanted to become priests, but were passed over by former bishops. These former bishops appointed visitors, and upon hearing this, Meletius excommunicated the visitors and installed 2 others to replace them. When the Archbishop of Alexandria found out what was going on, namely that Meletius had no respect for the martyrs, he urged the people to have no communication with him. In short, Meletius introduced himself into other dioceses with no right or authority. Also, he was convicted of offering sacrifices to idols. Instead of appealing, Meletius started his own church. The council's decision regarding this matter was that Meletius should remain in his city, but with no authority and power of ordination. As to the clergy he ordained, the council decided that they needed to be reordained. After the 5th century, the Meletians disappear from history. Well, friends, I think that's a good place to stop for today. I am not familiar with the Council of Nicaea, so I am learning right along with you. If there are any other decisions that they made, there will be a Council of Nicaea 4. If not, this is where the mini-series ends. Links to my Twitter, Discord, PayPal, and email are in the description, along with the link to my source for this episode. Please leave your comments in the comment section. I love hearing from you. You can also DM me on Twitter, or you can email me at my email address. Question everything and never be afraid. Here are a couple of videos from my library. If you have not watched them, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. And I will see you next time. Goodbye, friends.